Roller coasters promise thrills, not tragedies. But behind the flashing lights and screams of joy, some rides hide deadly secrets. In these parks built for fun, lives have been shattered in seconds, families torn apart by bolts that snapped, harnesses that failed, and warnings that were ignored. These aren't just accidents. They're nightmares disguised as entertainment. Buckle up as we uncover 5 horrifying amusement park deaths that will haunt you long after the ride ends. Number 1. Rosa Esparza, the final ride of a brave mother. It was supposed to be a family memory. July 19, 2013. Rosa Esparza was visiting Six Flags Over Texas for the first time. The 52-year-old mother had always been adventurous, eager to try new things. That summer evening, she stood in line for the park's newest thrill, the new Texas Giant, a towering hybrid coaster of wood and steel with a 153-foot drop and speeds up to 65 miles. Rosa wasn't alone. Her daughter and son-in-law were riding with her. As she was seated in car 3, she hesitated. The safety bar didn't feel right. Her gut screamed that something was off. She voiced her concern. But a park worker brushed it off. If it clicked, you're good. It wasn't good. Some witnesses said they never heard the click at all. As the coaster roared to life, Rosa clutched the restraint with silent fear. Her daughter, only 1 row behind, heard something strange, screams. But they weren't joyful. They were desperate. She turned only to see the unimaginable Rosa slipping her body nearly upside down. Then the car ascended a hill and Rosa was gone. She was ejected from her seat and thrown over the edge, landing more than 70 feet below. Her body struck a support beam and wrapped violently around it. Blood and tissue were scattered across the roof of a tunnel below. It was 6:45 p.m. Paramedics could only confirm what her family already feared: Rosa was dead. The horror didn't end there. Park staff had to restrain her daughter, who begged to reach her mother. Witnesses cried out. Strangers wept. Employees stood in stunned silence. But questions came fast. How could this happen? The ride had no seatbelts. Only a single lap bar held riders in place. An investigation revealed chilling details. Multiple employees had noticed Rosa's restraint was too loose. One even said it wasn't all the way down on her thigh. And worst of all, the restraint system had malfunctioned earlier that same week. The very same car 3 had a history. Rosa's family sued Six Flags and the case settled quietly out of court. No admission of guilt, no criminal charges. But the ride was revamped. New restraints, new belts. Too late for Rosa. Number 2. Asia LeSean Ferguson. One Step Too Far. June 28, 2008. Six Flags Over Georgia. 17-year-old Asia Ferguson was spending the day with friends from his church group. Bright, athletic, and full of energy, Asia was the kind of teen everyone loved, always smiling, always helping. But that Saturday, a moment of curiosity led to catastrophe. Asia and a friend got separated from the group. For reasons still debated, retrieving a hat, finding a shortcut, Asia climbed over 2 fences marked with bold "Do Not Enter" signs. He ended up beneath Batman the Ride, a high-speed coaster known for its loops and turns. What he may not have known, he was standing in a danger zone. At 2 p.m., the coaster flew overhead at nearly 50 mph. In one split second, tragedy struck. Asia was hit and decapitated by a speeding train. Witnesses watched in horror. A nearby off-duty officer called for help, but it was too late. Asia died instantly. Investigations confirmed the area was clearly restricted. The park emphasized that safety measures, signs, and fences had been in place. The death was ruled an accident. No charges, no lawsuits, just loss. Asia's parents were heartbroken. His father spoke of the boy with dreams, a scholar, an athlete, a helper. Friends mourned the loss of a life taken far too soon. The ride shut down temporarily. But the echoes of what happened that day still linger, a painful reminder that one wrong step in the wrong place can cost everything. Number 3, Caleb Schwab, the boy who trusted the slide. It was supposed to be a perfect summer day. August 7, 2016. Elected Officials Day at Schlitterbahn Water Park in Kansas City. Scott Schwab, a Kansas state representative, brought his wife Michelle and their 4 sons for a day of water-soaked fun. 10-year-old Caleb, the youngest, was buzzing with excitement. He had his heart set on riding Verrückt, the world's tallest water slide, towering at a jaw-dropping 168 feet. The name meant insane in German. It lived up to that name in the worst way imaginable. There were no age restrictions, no second thoughts. Caleb and his older brother Nathan eagerly climbed 264 steps to the top. Caleb got into Raft B, seated at the front with 2 adult women behind him. He weighed only 73 pounds. It mattered more than anyone knew. The moment the raft plunged down the first drop, it picked up terrifying speed. Then, at the second hill, it went airborne. In the blink of an eye, Caleb was hurled from the raft. He struck a metal netting pole and was decapitated instantly. Below, screams echoed. His brother Nathan watched the horror unfold, frozen. Caleb's blood painted a crimson trail down the slide. His mother tried to run to him. Witnesses held her back. No one should see their child like that. Scott, in shock, kept asking if Caleb was alive. He wasn't. The aftermath was a storm of grief, anger, and questions. Verrückt wasn't designed by engineers. It was cobbled together through trial and error. Videos later surfaced of sandbags flying off rafts during testing. Experts had warned about dangerous airlifts. Park officials ignored them. Caleb had no chance. The Schwab family settled for $20 million. The slide was torn down. Its creator was indicted, but charges were dropped. Caleb's death wasn't just a freak accident. It was the price of thrill paid in blood by a 10-year-old boy with a big smile and bigger dreams. Number 4. Fireball Disaster, Ohio State Fair, USA, 2017. July 26th. 2017 started with heartbreak and ended in horror. That morning, 18-year-old Tyler Jarrell attended his girlfriend's grandfather's funeral. To lift their spirits, he and Keziah Lewis headed to the Ohio State Fair, hoping the bright lights and spinning rides would shake off the gloom. It should have been a day of healing. It became a nightmare. Tyler had just graduated high school in Columbus, Ohio. He had big dreams, a bigger heart, and a future already taking shape. He'd enlisted in the Marines just days earlier. On Facebook, he'd posted a proud photo of himself holding a plaque in uniform. But he wouldn't make it to boot camp. As evening fell, Tyler and Keziah climbed aboard the Fireball, a towering thrill ride that spun riders 40 feet into the air. They buckled in, unaware that behind the carnival music and flashing lights, a deadly flaw was hiding in plain sight. The ride began its arc, swinging back and forth. Then disaster. A sudden violent jolt ripped through the machine. A support arm snapped mid-motion, launching a full row of riders into the air like ragdolls. Tyler was hurled with devastating force. He died instantly. Keziah, next to him, suffered massive injuries to her pelvis, ribs, and ankles. The scene was chaos, screams, sirens, and stunned silence. Hours earlier, the ride had passed inspection by the Ohio Department of Agriculture. But that seal of approval meant nothing. The investigation revealed years of corrosion on the snapped part fatigue that inspectors had missed. The fireball wasn't just dangerous, it was a ticking time bomb. Tyler's death rocked his hometown. His mother, Amber Duffield, turned grief into purpose, fighting to make sure no other parent would endure the same loss. She pushed for Tyler's Law, a sweeping bill to overhaul amusement ride safety in Ohio, more inspections, tighter regulations, real accountability. Keziah survived, but her life changed forever. She would never fully walk the same. Yet through pain and metal pins, she found the strength to speak out, to tell Tyler's story, to demand change. The ride that killed Tyler is gone. But his name now stands for something stronger than steel, a promise that fun should never come at the cost of a life. Number 5, Tyre Sampson, the gentle giant who never came down. March 24, 2022. A warm spring evening in Orlando. For 14-year-old Tyre Sampson, it was supposed to be the highlight of his spring break. The Missouri teen had come to Florida with friends looking forward to rides, laughter, and memories. Instead, his name would be etched into one of the darkest moments in amusement park history. Tyre wasn't your average teenager. At 6'5" and 383 pounds, he was built like an NFL lineman, but inside he was a soft-spoken, kind-hearted kid, known by those who loved him as the gentle giant. A promising football star with a bright future and a bigger heart. He had dreams, college, the NFL, giving back to his family. But that night, Tyre had already been turned away from 2 rides due to his size. So when he was allowed on the Orlando Freefall, the world's tallest freestanding drop tower, it felt like a win. A final thrill to cap off the night. But something didn't feel right. The harness didn't sit snug on his chest. It wobbled, moved. Tyre voiced his fear to a friend. In a moment that now haunts the internet, he even asked his friend to tell his parents he loved them, just in case. As the ride climbed 430 feet into the night sky, everything seemed quiet. Until the drop. At 75 miles per hour, the seats plunged, and Tyre slipped. The horrifying moment was captured on video and shared across the globe, a blur of metal and a body falling. Onlookers screamed. His friends watched in frozen terror. Emergency crews arrived fast, but Tyre was pronounced dead at the hospital. Blunt force trauma, internal devastation. In the days that followed, what emerged was more than tragic. It was criminal. The ride's seat sensor had been manually adjusted to fake a locked harness. Tyre's weight, nearly 100 pounds over the safety limit, was ignored. The ride should never have accepted him. The safeguards failed. The system failed. The adults in charge failed. Tyre's parents filed lawsuits. Lawmakers pushed for change. And Tyre's Law was introduced to mandate stricter regulations for thrill rides across Florida. But nothing, no settlement, no law, no public outcry can bring back the boy who just wanted to feel the wind one last time. Number 6. Crushed Between the Magic. America Sings, Disneyland, California, 1974. At Disneyland, the magic is manufactured, every light, every song, every mechanical smile engineered to delight. And America Sings was no exception, a rotating theater brimming with animatronic animals and patriotic tunes spinning through Americana like a musical love letter. But on July 8, 1974, that cheerful carousel turned into a death trap. Deborah Gale Stone was just 18, bright-eyed, ambitious, a college freshman with a dream job in the happiest place on earth. She greeted guests with radiant warmth, her voice the first note of the show. But that night, in a moment between scenes, something unimaginable happened. Deborah stepped too close to the moving wall into a narrow gap between the rotating stage and the stationary floor. There was no cry for help, no alarm. Just a sickening thud. Deborah was crushed silently instantly, her body pinned between two unforgiving slabs of machinery. The audience kept watching, unaware. The music played on. News of her death sent shockwaves through the park and the nation. How could Disneyland, a place defined by perfection, allow such horror? The truth was devastating. No censors, no shutdown system, no barrier to protect her, no warning that one step could kill. Deborah didn't make a mistake. The design did. Disney quietly shut the attraction down. Safety features were added: lights, sensors, floor triggers, too late. America Sings reopened. The animals kept singing. The platform kept spinning. But something changed behind the scenes. Cast members whispered her name. And for those who worked there, the magic would never feel quite so safe again. Number 7. Fire in the Dark. The Ghost Train. Tragedy, Luna Park, Sydney, 1979. It was supposed to be a thrill, a harmless jolt of adrenaline in the dark. Luna Park's Ghost Train in Sydney had scared kids silly for decades, delivering laughter after every cheap scare. But on the night of June 9th, 1979, the ride stopped pretending. The horror became real. At first it was just smoke. Then flames burst from the tunnel's wooden frame, swallowing the ride in seconds. Inside, riders were trapped. No alarms, no sprinklers, no emergency exits. Just blackness. Screams echoed from within as parents and children clawed for air, for light, for life. Outside, panicked families watched the building glow orange, helpless, as loved ones vanished in the fire. 7 never made it out. 6 children. 1 father. Gone in minutes. But what came after was even more chilling. The cause: officially faulty wiring. But whispers spread fast, the smell of fuel, the fleeing figures seen moments before, the blaze, the strange silence of the fire alarms. Then came allegations: police misconduct, missing witness statements, destroyed evidence. Some claimed the ride was torched intentionally. Some pointed fingers at organized crime and political corruption. Luna Park's management changed. The ghost train was bulldozed. Questions were buried with the ashes. To this day, no one has been held responsible. No one has answered for the screams that night. What started as a haunted attraction ended in a real-life nightmare and a mystery that still burns in Australia's collective memory. Number 8. Trapped in the Flames, Haunted Castle, Six Flags, Great Adventure, New Jersey, 1984. It was supposed to be cheap thrills, a haunted maze of rubber masks, flickering lights, and dollar store monsters, the kind of place teens dared each other to enter and laughed their way out of. But on the night of May 11th, 1984, the haunted castle at Six Flags Great Adventure didn't just scare, it killed. A fire broke out inside. Maybe it was a lighter, maybe a match. But once the flames caught, they raced through the structure like a fuse on dynamite. The building was made of trailers stuffed with wood, plastic foam, and zero common sense. No sprinklers, no alarms, no emergency lights, just smoke, fire, and pitch-black panic. 8 teenagers were inside. They screamed. They stumbled. They ran headfirst into walls built to disorient. Some thought the fire was part of the act until the heat came too close. They were found later, huddled in corners, clutching each other, their final moments spent in terror. The nation recoiled in disbelief. How could a fire trap like this exist in a major amusement park? The truth was brutal. The haunted castle wasn't even a permanent structure. It had never been inspected. Fire codes were either outdated or ignored entirely. Safety was an afterthought. Six Flags blamed arson. Prosecutors blamed negligence. The case went to trial. No one went to jail. The haunted castle was reduced to ash and memory. But for the families left behind, the horror still burns. Their children walked in expecting a fake scare. They left behind a real nightmare, one the rest of America couldn't look away from. Number 9. Wooden Monster. Big Dipper, Blackpool, Pleasure Beach, UK. It creaked like bones, groaned like something alive. And when it roared along the seaside skies of Blackpool Pleasure Beach, it sounded like history refusing to die. The Big Dipper, built in the 1920s, wasn't just a roller coaster. It was a wooden monster, and it had teeth. For generations, it was tradition. You came to Blackpool, you rode the Dipper. Kids, parents, even grandparents lined up for its rickety hills and bone-rattling turns. It wasn't just a ride, it was a rite of passage. But on a summer day in 1970, the monster snapped. A packed train derailed mid-ride. Wood splintered like matchsticks. Steel bolts tore loose. Cars jackknifed, ejecting riders into the air. What began in laughter ended in screams and blood. One woman died. Dozens were injured. The cause, axles worn down by time and neglect, never replaced, barely inspected. And it wasn't a one-time tragedy. Over the years, the Big Dipper built a reputation, and not a good one. Riders came off battered, bruised, some even unconscious. Broken ribs, dislocated joints, blackouts. Engineers called it dangerous. Critics called it outdated. But the park, they called it charming. They slapped on new paint, tightened a few bolts, called it restored. But the ghosts were never far. In 2004, the ride finally closed for renovations. When it reopened, it was safer. But every screeching turn, every violent lurch still echoed with the sounds of that 1970 derailment, a ride that couldn't let go of its past, and a park that wouldn't admit it had nearly killed in the name of nostalgia. Number 10. The ride that should have been shut down, Mind Scrambler's fatal encore. It looked like pure fun, flashing lights, pounding music, a blur of color and screams. The Mind Scrambler at Playland in New York was a crowd favorite, spinning riders into chaotic euphoria. But behind the carnival energy, something darker was spinning too, a deadly cycle that should have been stopped long before it struck twice. In 2004, it claimed its first victim, a 7-year-old girl. Her seatbelt wasn't secured properly. As the ride whipped into motion, she was thrown like a doll, her body crashing against metal and pavement. She died instantly. The park went quiet. Promises were made. Safety upgrades installed. Officials swore never again. But 3 years later, it happened again. This time, it wasn't a child. It was one of their own. Gabriella Guerin, 21, grew up with Playland. It was her summer job, her second home. On that fateful day in 2007, she was doing her job, loading passengers, checking restraints, when another employee hit the start button too soon. The Mind Scrambler launched into its frenzy. Gabriella was still in the ride zone. She never had a chance. The machine she thought she knew turned violent. It struck her, threw her, shattered her. She died before anyone could hit stop. 2 deaths. Same ride. Same pattern of negligence. The public was outraged. How could a ride that killed a child still be operating? Playland had added protocols, yes. But what good were rules if they failed when it mattered most? Number 12. The Derailment Disaster. Fujin the Sehu. Expoland, Japan, 2007. They named it after gods Fujin the Sehu, wind and thunder. A standing roller coaster meant to make you feel invincible, soaring through the air, as if the elements themselves bent to thrill. At Expoland in Osaka, it was the star, until the ride lived up to its name and unleashed hell. May 2007. It started like any other ride, fast, loud, electric. Passengers stood tall, wind tearing past their faces, hearts pounding. Then halfway through, metal shrieked. The screams changed. Joy snapped into terror. The train lifted, tilted, then derailed. Chaos. One 19-year-old college student just there for a day of fun with friends was killed instantly. Dozens more were battered, bloodied, and broken. Some slammed into steel. Some were pinned beneath it. The ride stopped, but the nightmare was just beginning. Sirens replaced the music. Panic swept through the park. Families ran. Staff froze. And beneath the wreckage, a harsh truth waited. The cause, a snapped axle, a piece of metal that hadn't been replaced or even inspected in 15 years. 15 years of wear ignored, of safety neglected, of maintenance skipped. One overlooked part. One irreversible consequence. The backlash was swift. The public turned. Expo Land became a symbol of failure. Trust vanished. Attendance collapsed. And within 2 years, the park shut its gates for good. The gods of wind and thunder fell, brought down not by nature, but by human neglect. And the name Fujin Raijin II now lives not in awe, but in silence. Number 13. The Forgotten Boy, Amrapali Park, India, 2006. In the heart of a bustling Indian city, Amrapali Park was a dream, a vibrant escape where laughter echoed, families gathered, and children chased joy under the sun. But on one quiet afternoon, that dream shattered. A young boy no older than 10 stood in line for the roller coaster, eyes lit with wonder, heart pounding with anticipation. To him, it wasn't just a ride. It was a rocket ship, a dragon's flight, the kind of adventure childhood is made of. He climbed in, buckled up, smiled. Moments later, that smile vanished forever. Halfway through the ride, something went wrong. Horribly wrong. The coaster derailed without warning. Metal screamed. The boy's car flew off the tracks. Time stopped. Screams filled the air, not of thrill, but pure human terror. His small body was hurled through the sky and slammed into the ground with unforgiving force. He died before help could reach him. The park froze. Parents ran. Employees stood paralyzed. But the worst had already happened. The investigation was brutal, worn tracks, missing safety checks, incomplete maintenance logs, a list of failures that should have grounded the ride long ago. But they were ignored, overlooked, forgotten, until a child paid the price. Amrapali Park shut the ride down. News spread like wildfire, igniting outrage. Politicians made promises. Regulations were reviewed. But none of it could rewind time for the family that came for a day of fun and left with an empty seat in the car. Number 14. Death on the Tracks. The Derby Racer, Revere Beach, Boston. Before the age of steel titans and 3D spectacles, thrill seekers flocked to Revere Beach, Boston, where the Derby Racer ruled the shoreline. Built in the early 1900s, it was a wooden rocket, rickety, raw, and fearless. It didn't offer thrills. It dared you to survive them. By the 1930s, the ride had claimed 5 lives. And these weren't obscure freak accidents. They were public, violent, unforgettable. Riders were flung from their cars mid-turn, soaring through the air like rag dolls. Some hit the ground. Others were crushed beneath the thunderous weight of the cars behind them. The cause: no seatbelts, no lap bars, nothing but splinters and grip strength. Riders held on to the wooden sides like their lives depended on it, and often they did. Newspapers branded it a death trap. Whispers turned to warnings. Families stopped lining up. Revere Beach's pride began to rot into its darkest attraction. But the owners refused to let go. They patched it, repainted it, renamed it. But the blood on the track didn't fade. In 1936, after too many funerals and too few solutions, they finally tore it down. Not out of remorse, but out of necessity. The crowds were gone. Trust was dead. No one wanted to become the next victim of the ride that mistook danger for entertainment. The Derby racer didn't just crash. It outlived its welcome and became a haunting lesson in what happens when spectacle outweighs safety.